And we're back here breaking down Season 1, Episode 6 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or should I say Captain America and the Winter Soldier. We'll get to that in due time. A ton to talk about here today with the grand season finale of the show. A lot of great stuff. A lot of questions to be answered as well. We got Phil. Phil, you're on the Twitter machine at PhilDL616. Phil, what's going on, my man?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. And Chris, you're back as well. You're on the Twitter machine at BR_doctor. Chris, what's going on, dude?
Oh, not much.
We get a lot to talk about from this season finale. A lot of questions that I have for you guys with comic book references and some stuff that I missed. But let's talk about the obvious right off the bat here. Obviously, we all saw it coming, but it was the right result. Predictability is not always a bad thing. Falcon is indeed the new Captain America. And my question for you guys from a couple of episodes ago, will they call him Captain America? Will he still be Falcon? We found out at the end of this episode, they're calling him Cap now, which is fucking awesome. And again, at the very end of the show, it said Captain America and the Winter Soldier as we kind of faded off into the credits. So before we get into anything else, let's talk about that real quick and how awesome Sam was on this show. Chris, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the full evolution of the Falcon character becoming Captain America on this episode?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, they started early, too. Like, obviously, the first shot that you see of him in the suit, you're like, oh, yeah, that's Captain America right there. But then he literally tells somebody, like, I'm Captain America, like a minute later. And then, of course, you hear the joke of the guy going, I thought Captain America was on the moon.
That was the line of the episode, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but as he was down on the ground, I think it was when he was approaching the politicians, and all the media were asking him questions like, are you still going to be known as Falcon? Or are we going to call you Captain America? And then somebody goes, are you going to go by Captain Falcon? And that just made me laugh because there is a character named Captain Falcon in video games.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I think a lot of people probably know him from Super Smash Brothers, but he's from some like racing video game before that. So I just thought it was kind of funny. I didn't know if they threw that in as a reference or if that was even intentional.
I haven't played the games in forever, but you talking about like Falcon Punch, that character?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Captain Falcon. I completely fucking forgot about that. Holy shit. I don't know if he was in the newer games. I remember playing him in Brawl and not Brawl, the Super Smash Bros. Melee. But we're going back a ways here. No, I didn't catch that. That's a great reference. I know we talked about this before, but would they call Torres, if he becomes Falcon, would he just be called Falcon, or would he have a different name from the comics?
I think he was just Falcon, right, Phil?
Yeah, I think it was just Falcon.
Interesting. Hopefully they bring back that character too, and we kind of saw a little bit of him on this episode. But Phil, what were your thoughts on Sam becoming Captain America, finally, officially on this episode? Your thoughts on the suit as well, which looked fucking badass.
I think they handled everything well. I think just building up to the moment of him finally donning his suit and getting the shield, I think that they did a great job of justifying why he's Captain America. And like I said, the suit just looks so good. I like that it doesn't look like just cloth. It looks like armor because, of course, like he doesn't have power, so he needs some way to protect himself. Mm-hmm. And the wings just look great. It just looks good. Like the suit looks really good. A lot of scenes where he had the shield on his back and he was flying, it just looked really cool. I think the first shot that we see him when he flies at a distance and throws the shield through that window is perfectly done. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no complaints with it. What
about you, Chris? What were your thoughts on the suit?
Oh, I liked it. It was super accurate to one of his comic book looks. Like it's slightly different, but not much. Like they had the full on like partial mask goggles thing that he's got. But yeah, it was awesome looking him flying with the shield on his back in the middle of the wings. And I love the way that they were creatively using the shield in concert with the wings as he was flying. Like some of the stuff during those helicopter, like when he was going after the people in the helicopters was awesome. I really enjoyed that stuff.
Yeah, they were doing. Those were some great scenes there. I liked when he was going through the helicopter and he knocked out the pilots and he had the woman take over for him instead, which was great. Let's get overall thoughts about this episode. I haven't seen a ton of reactions to it, shockingly, on social media. None of this was spoiled for me beforehand, and I watched this yesterday afternoon. But I thought this was a great way to close out the season. I don't know if some people had high hopes coming off like the WandaVision thing where we all had theories. I don't think this was the same thing. I don't think people had as crazy of theories for the season finale. No major reveals, just a lot of feel-good moments. There's some sad stuff, happy stuff, funny stuff. We'll get into all of that specifically. But as far as overall thoughts, Phil, what were your thoughts as this on the season finale? Was it a great way to kind of wrap up all the storylines before they kind of paved the way for future? We were talking before we got started here that obviously we have the new movie, which we'll get to, a potential new season. They didn't wrap up everything, but as a season finale, did this work for you?
I thought it was a good episode. I don't think this is the streak of the last few episodes of last saying it.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Chris?
Episode.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Phil. I got cut off there. I thought you were finished. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying the last episode before this one was a little bit better than this episode, but I still think it was a good episode. Yeah,
no, I thought the last episode was good too, and this was also a really good one, and they did a good job again of finalizing some storylines but leaving a lot of cliffhangers, a lot like with WandaVision, so I wasn't too surprised. But I thought this was good stuff. What about you, Chris? Did it meet your expectations? What were your overall thoughts on it?
There were definitely a couple of things that I felt you could tell were affected by the pandemic, like certain storylines I don't think were as deep as they were originally intended, so we might have skipped a few beats. But anything that I had an issue with in this episode was completely overshadowed by the stuff that I liked. I do agree with Phil that I think it probably wasn't as good as the last episode, but I do think it was a satisfying finale. And I definitely enjoyed the second half of the episode the most, just because it was kind of like wrapping up each character's stories, and that's where we got like the real character developments.
Yeah. Did you guys hear that there was supposed to be like a plague storyline in the show, and it got cut because of the COVID?
Yes.
Well, I heard that was a rumor, and then the actor who played Torres was like, no, that was never in any of the scripts that we got, like even from the beginning. So I don't know if they went off of like the vaccine thing in the first episode. Remember how they were stealing vaccines?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe people were jumping to conclusions, but either way, it wouldn't surprise me if something like that was cut, because they're like, listen, the pandemic is already screwing with people's heads. We don't need to delve into that any further.
Yeah, I heard the same thing, and not just because of the vaccine thing. That would be one thing if it was like, people had seen that and they kind of jumped to conclusions. But there was one episode specifically, I don't know if it was the second or third one, but it was a while ago, when I don't know if she was the leader or one of the head honchos of the Flag Smashers had died. And they said that she died from some sort of an illness, but I think people were interpreting that because of the way that a lot of the scenes were shot. When they killed the scientist guy, Nagel, I believe his name was, a lot of the lines that they incorporated in the scene were shot differently. Like a lot of them were voiceovers, and it was obvious, and it wasn't done with the rest of the show. So it seemed like whoever was with the Flag Smashers, that head woman whose name escapes me right now, she had died due to some sort of plague, like you had mentioned, Phil. And I don't know, it was one episode specifically where a lot of the scenes were shot differently. I don't know if it was a COVID thing where they ran into issues with filming and that's why, but I got the sense that there was some sort of a plague storyline too that they just had to cut due to the current circumstances. I don't know how accurate that is, though. I guess we'll never know, but no one actually came out and said that was or wasn't true, right? Like in terms of the directors and stuff.
Yeah. Not that I know of. Just the actor who played Torres said that he didn't know anything about a storyline like that getting cut.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's news to me. But I'm sure we'll find out at some point, and that might have affected things as far as the show goes. But even still, I thought it was still well done overall, and they kind of finalized most stuff. And as you said, Chris, it was a satisfying finale. With Bucky too, it wasn't just Sam, but like all the characters kind of got their resolution with the show, and we'll kind of go down the line here. But with Bucky, got to cross off the names off the list, including the old Asian man from the first episode when he tells him that he killed his son, and then he just kind of walks off. What were your thoughts on that, Chris? Obviously, we kind of expected that to happen, but what were your thoughts on Bucky's character kind of coming full circle here too?
I was wondering how they were going to do that scene, because obviously the show is trying to move Bucky forward in a positive direction, like mentally. So if he had gone to that old man and said, "Hey, I killed your son," and then we saw the reaction of, "I hate you, get out of my house, I never want to see you again," like that would have been worse for Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't have made sense for him to forgive him instantly either. So the fact that they had him kind of tell him, and you see like that instant reaction of sadness on his face, and then we just jump to him leaving out of the hallway, I think that was a smart way to do it, because they didn't have to figure out how the old man reacted in that moment. All they had to do was give us that closure, and then Bucky's able to move on. And they kind of showed him like checking on the old man before he left, and like he saw him in the restaurant. He still has people around him who care about him, so he knows he'll be okay. But yeah, I was wondering how they were going to handle that, and I thought that they found an interesting way to do it. Even though some people probably will look at it as a cop-out, I think it was probably the smartest decision they could have made.
No, I think they went about it the right way, because like you said, if they had done it that way where like he's screaming at Bucky over it, like, I don't know, because obviously he has a reason to, but I thought the way they went about it was great, because it's not also like they made up and he just was like, "Oh yeah, it's fine, like I forgive you." Like he just killed your fucking, like he didn't just kill him obviously, but you just found out that he killed your son and they're not still friends. So I thought the way they went about it too was great, because I don't know, it was a weird thing, because we see Bucky at the end of the episode, he's all happy, he's fine, he's with Sam and his family and whatever else at the dock. So I don't know, I thought the way they went about it was probably the best thing they possibly could have done. What were your thoughts, Phil, on Bucky on this episode and him kind of coming to terms with his old self?
This kind of threw me for a loop, because I assumed that he was going to take on like some kind of larger role in the MCU and maybe do other things, but I completely forgot, like rewatching last episode, and Sam told him, like, you can't do what you used to do. You have to be in service of others. Like, if you want to move ahead, you have to be in service of others. And, I mean, we saw that several times. Like, we saw him saving the people and getting the people out of the truck, and him being surprised when people said thank you. I think this is the first time we've seen him save anybody ever.
Yeah. Wow. Really? That's crazy.
Like, I don't think we've seen him do anything like that even in the first Cap movie. Like, I think this is his first time actually helping people.
Wow.
And so I think that went a long way. And then, like, the resolution of the stuff with the old man, I think they did about the best way they could. They're clearly not still friends. He didn't go in there and have food with him. And so
yeah.
I think they did the best conclusion to it that they could, without making it too hokey.
Yeah, no, I think they did the best thing they possibly could. I think they found a right balance there, and I was kind of happy with where the character ended up. Like you said, he's not eating lunch with him at the end of the episode, which just would have been weird. It's like, "Oh, I killed your son, but let's just move on from it." Like, I understand what you did, but I'm not going to be... I mean, maybe he was mad at him, obviously, and we just didn't see it, but, they just didn't move on like they were still friends, like nothing ever happened. Like, that's a very realistic way to go about it, so I'm glad they did that. That made sense to me. I enjoyed that. The John Walker stuff to me was just weird. So the last that we really saw of him, aside from the trial stuff, he killed an innocent man, to an extent, innocent. Didn't kill his friend a couple of episodes ago, but he still killed the guy anyway. And now on this episode, it was weird, because obviously he still somewhat got some evil in him, as we saw at the end of the episode, the connection with Val, which we'll get to, but kind of making it back to a babyface turn a little bit and helping out Cap, helping out, Sam and Bucky and whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. He doesn't exactly face the consequences for what he did a couple of episodes ago. So I just thought that was weird. Chris, what were your thoughts with John Walker's actions on this episode? Because, I don't know, it kind of felt weird to see him back to being a good guy again to a certain extent.
Well, that was one of the things I had a little bit of a wonder, like, did some of what we should have seen get cut because of pandemic conditions? Because it really did feel like there was a specific way they were taking his character in the end of the last episode, and then all of a sudden he has a change of heart in this episode. Like, the mid-credits scene of episode 5 is him building his own shield, and then halfway through this episode, he's throwing that shield away. Like, it just felt very strange and a little disjointed. But I'm not surprised that that's what they did. I didn't really ever think they were going to go full heel with him, because he is somebody who wants to be a hero. He wants to be a good person, but they're showing that he obviously has a little bit of anger issues, maybe a little bit of mental instability, whether it's from the serum or not, I don't know. But like at times it almost seems like he has a little bit of a tick. And I don't know. I did like the scene, though, where he had the choice to go after Carly,
Mm-hmm.
save those people, and in that moment, he decided to do the heroic thing. So that in itself was enough for me to understand why Falcon and Bucky would be like, all right, you can stick around for a little while we finish this up.
Yeah, no, I thought that was well done. I like that scene, too. But just, I don't know, Or go ahead.
I did like the scene when he first showed up, though, when he's screaming at Carly, and she's like, I didn't mean to kill your friend. I don't want to. What she said, something like, I don't want to focus on people who don't matter.
Yeah, she said his life doesn't matter. Yeah,
and he's like, you don't think Lamar's life mattered? And you see him sort of lose it for a second, but yeah, I do think that the scene of him at the end with Julia Louis-Dreyfus is obviously going to carry over towards either Secret Invasion, Armor Wars. Maybe he'll show up in Cap 4. Who knows? But I like that they gave him the comics accurate suit. Like, that suit is a little more accurate to what I remember from the comics.
Mm-hmm. And they called him a U.S. agent. What was that about?
Well, that's the name he takes up after losing the Cap name in the comics, too, so
Okay.
That is a natural progression. And the way Julia gave him the name was obviously a little hokey, but, you know, code names are always hokey in superhero stuff. Like, and they've already called attention to that. Like, Bucky freaking out at the name Battlestar was really funny.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, Walker is an interesting character because he's sort of, I guess the word anti-hero might apply to him, because he's willing to go a little bit farther than some of these other guys. So I wouldn't quite put him on the level of the Punisher, at least not the MCU version of Walker. But there's plenty of time for them to build to that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where he goes from here, just because how he was handled on this episode was just, like you said, I think disjointed is the perfect word to describe it. And the weird thing is that it's probably leading to the Secret Invasion storyline that they're doing. He's just of the mindset that what he's doing is justified, because you hear him say, like, oh, I'm back, like as being, you know, back as a U.S. agent or Captain America or whatever. Although she clearly has ulterior motives to make him like a dark Avengers-like storyline. I had seen people say like maybe the Thunderbolts or something. So I don't know. It was just strange. What were your thoughts, Phil, on the John Walker character on the show and where he might be going forward?
I agree. Some of the stuff in this episode was very strange. I think him going back to being very jokey is what made it not work for me in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
But not him actually, you know, having a change of heart. Like the change of heart stuff, I was fine with because of the ways that he did it. Like I think the scene with Carly and, you know, clearly throwing a Black Lives Matter reference in there, and you know, I understand that because it was his friend. It wasn't just like it's anybody; it's his friend, and that's why he, you know, jumped into, you know, righteous mode in that moment. And I still think the scene of him pulling the truck and making the decision to let go of the shield was a very good visual. But yeah, some of his humor in this episode just didn't work for me. I think the other part I enjoyed was him having his medals on the back of the shield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a good touch. But yeah, I think the ongoing thing that we're supposed to understand and kind of be upset about in this episode is that Walker and other people are getting away with things that they shouldn't get away with. And if it was anybody else, they wouldn't have gotten away with it. And that's direct correlation to Isiah Bradley. He did less than John Walker did, and he was thrown in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And Walker murdered a guy in cold blood And I mean, he did face consequences because he was stripped of his title and he was stripped of the shield, but he's still allowed to just act independently of the government, and they don't do anything. And I mean, even like he's here doing stuff in this scenes, and they didn't do anything. Nobody's like, hey, stop right there. He's just walking around moving freely. And I think we're supposed to be agitated with that in some way. So I think that's the intentional feeling.
Yeah, if that was done by design, then I can totally understand that. I hope it was, because especially like at the end of the episode, like you said, like he killed a man in cold blood an episode or two ago. Then by the end of the episode, when Sam was giving the speech to the government guys and the media and whatever, like he's just standing right there like nothing ever happened. I guess they just forgave him because he saved the people in the truck, despite the fact he just killed someone like right before this. So I don't know, it was strange. But you mentioned Isiah Bradley and how I loved how we got him back on this episode. That goes full circle too. And now Sam brings him to the memorial tribute, hall, whatever, and we get to see his statue, which I thought was really fucking cool. And Elijah's there too, so he gets to see it. That to me, I thought was the best part of the entire episode. So I thought that was just fantastic. What were your thoughts on that, Phil, and how we kind of got the full circle for Isiah Bradley too?
Man, I watched it really early in the morning, and man, that was definitely a scene. I was just sitting here, just like boo-hooing. I was like, he did the right thing. And I mean, if anything, like that scene was great for closure for Isiah. I mean, it doesn't take away what happened to him, but he gave him his history back, and he put it in a museum, and he made it known like America cannot just gloss over your story. And I've seen some people say that that's kind of a happy bow to throw on it, but he cannot do that. Like Sam can't take away what was done to him, but he can put his history where it belongs, right next to Cap's. So I thought the scene was great. I thought little bits in that scene, like when they first walked in, and I noticed that Eli's collar on his shirt had the red, white, and blue on it. I mean, other little things, like just throughout this episode, Sam did the right thing for everyone, like doing right by Isiah, and then still doing right by Carly, forgiving John, even though Walker did something terrible 2 episodes back. He forgave him, and even when he was giving his speech, you could see that John was looking at him and nodding, and just seeing how everybody was inspired by Sam is that was the greatest thing about this episode.
Yeah, the speech was great. I mean, kind of going to that too. I kind of forgot about that, but the speech and how they kind of showed what I like the fact they didn't just completely paint the Flag Smashers and Carly specifically as the bad guys. They were bad guys with a purpose and with a point that actually made sense. And Sam made sure to bring that up so everyone kind of gets back on the same page. So I thought that was great. The Elijah stuff, or the Isiah Bradley stuff was awesome too. I love the statue thing, and he said, "Now no one will ever forget what you did for this country," which I thought was just fantastic. What were your thoughts on it, Chris? The not Elijah. I keep saying Elijah. That's obviously his grandson, but with Isiah, what were your thoughts on the statue reveal, and as well as Sam's speech into the camera at the end of the episode?
I loved it, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I called this. I said something was going to happen with Isiah. Either he was going to get acknowledged with a medal, or like Falcon was going to do something to make sure he got acknowledged. Like back when he first got introduced, I said this.
Oh, there you go. I don't remember that. There you go.
And I'm so happy that they did it. That was definitely kind of a tear-jerking moment, especially when like Carl Lumley walks up and just hugs Sam, and you could just see those tears of like, I don't want to say happiness necessarily, but like just that little bit of closure, like obviously brought him to tears. But were either of you guys able to read what it said on the memorial? Not the memorial, the little thing. I've got it here. I can read it really quick.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it says, Isiah Bradley was an unknown American hero whose name was unknown for too long. Isiah was one of a dozen African-American soldiers who were recruited against their will and without their consent for participation in human testing in pursuit of the super soldier serum. Most did not survive. The few who did lived through testing The few who did live through testing were sent on secret missions during the Korean War. During the conflict, against all odds, Isiah Bradley rescued his fellow soldiers and 28 other POWs from behind enemy lines. However, fearful of the ramifications of a black super soldier, some individuals within the government tried to erase Isiah's story from history. His family was issued a falsified death certificate, and for decades, the truth of his unflinching bravery was hidden.
Oh,
so, yeah, it definitely was a nice little thing. I wish they had focused on that for more than a second so people could have read it. But, yeah, it was really cool that they added a little wing to the Captain America museum for him and for that to be acknowledged. And I loved the little exchange that Sam had with them at their house, too, beforehand, where Isiah was kind of giving him his props. Like, I saw what you did, and like basically kind of telling him like he had his blessing, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just really well done. It was a nice way to kind of wrap up his story. And then, obviously if the plan is to work towards Young Avengers and stuff, now we have Eli out there. So maybe at some point he'll be inspired to join the military, or who knows, whatever they decide to do with him.
Yeah. No, I thought he was all over those scenes, too, so I'm glad they incorporated him. I didn't think we would be seeing much of Isiah at all after he was introduced, but he's been in a bunch of episodes since then, which I thought was really cool, and he got his closure. And yeah, especially when he brought it, because he shook his hand first, he shook Sam's hand first, and then he brought him in for the hug, and like you said, you can see the tears, and he's like shaking, so you could definitely see that it meant a lot to him. So that was my favorite part of the entire show. That almost, it almost made me cry there for a second, and then we got like if that was the end of the episode, that totally would have made me cry, but then we got like the cookout at the end of the episode, which was cool too. But we'll get to all that. We got to address the obvious here, which I wanted to save until a little bit later on, because we got to get to the important stuff first, but we got the reveal. Sharon is the power broker. Indeed. I mean, we all saw this coming from a mile away. But we got the official reveal here. We know she's the power broker. No one knows she's the power broker now, because Backtrack got killed. Carly knew, and she's now dead. So no one knows except for her. Obviously, we weren't surprised by this. Were you guys disappointed? Phil, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on Sharon's reveal as the power broker on this episode?
I didn't like the reveal. I felt like it was one of those things where it was like too obvious that it didn't even feel like a reveal.
Yeah.
And then I just don't think they did a good enough job fleshing out why she would do this, because if we're going from Winter Soldier, where she gave the eulogy at Peggy's funeral, to this, and just some of the stuff that she said in that, I mean, like her words in that eulogy, no, I'm sorry, that was in Civil War. Her words in that eulogy are what got Steve to stand his ground and not sign the Accords. So we go from that to her being a bad guy, and it just doesn't feel like a good transition. Like, it doesn't feel like we got enough in between that to justify it. Now, the thing is, like, I understand why they're doing it, because in the comics, Sharon was a sleeper agent that actually ends up killing Steve in the death of Captain America. So I understand, like, they're trying to set up this whole that she was a sleeper agent all along, and that's my guess on why she had all of this power. Because am I missing something, or I thought she was snapped at one point, and it seems like the show is saying she wasn't snapped.
They said
I don't think she was.
She said she was.
Establish?
You know what? I think what we're thinking of. I don't think they ever said she snapped, but it was in Endgame. They showed her face under the the missing people. That's where I think it comes from.
Right. So maybe they just thought she was missing, and maybe that's why I got confused, and I thought she was snapped. I don't know. But yeah, I just don't think they did a good enough job, fleshing out her story.
Yeah, I hope she didn't snap, because if she did, just to to come back and then like have this change of heart within a matter of months, because this only takes place 6 months after the events of the snap, when everyone's brought back, is just a little too sudden. I don't know, just from when we last saw her to now, I would hope that there was a lot that happened in between to explain why she is who she is now and how she got to where she is. Because if she did snap and this all just happened in a matter of months, I don't know. It just kind of felt forced and sudden to me. So, like you said, Phil, it was so obvious based off her previous actions on this, on this show and other episodes, that I was hoping that it wouldn't be. I'm not even saying that it had to be some major reveal, but almost just anyone but her. Or if she was working for the power broker and she wasn't the power broker herself. But she is, and they're running with it as seen in the post-credit scene, which is interesting, and it sets up some storylines for coming shows and movies and seasons and whatever. But I didn't love that. What were your thoughts on it, Chris?
Well, I have a theory, and my thoughts on it will change if my theory pans out. I don't think that's Sharon. I think that's a Skrull.
You think so?
I can see that.
Okay.
I think it's a Skrull because what the Skrulls do is they come in and they replace people and they gain power. Like, they don't just pick random people. They pick people who are going to strategically give them an advantage. Sharon now has access to all these criminal underworld contacts and government stuff. Like, it's perfectly setting up for her to be revealed as a Skrull, and then the real Sharon being, held in a cryogenic chamber somewhere or something.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
If that turns out to be the case, then I don't have a problem with how all this went down. If not, then they failed to establish why she would make the heel turn this drastically. Now, it doesn't mean they can't go back in another show and dive deeper into that and explain it, but you made her the big bad of this show, and then she doesn't even end up really being the big bad. Like, at the end of the day, there really wasn't a specific singular big bad in this show, was there? Because really. Carly wasn't really a villain. Mm-hmm. Like, she was and she wasn't. But at the end of the day, Sam, sort of agreed. Yeah, Batroc. And Batroc got shot by either... I couldn't tell what happened. Who shot Batroc? Was it Carly or Sharon?
Sharon. Sharon shot him, and then Carly shot Sharon.
Okay, I was wondering what happened there. I couldn't tell because
that was a confusing scene.
All their guns were sort of in different directions. And also, I gotta say, I was a little disappointed that Sam didn't definitively beat Batroc. Like, he sort of ran away from the fight once he found out that other people were in trouble later.
Yeah, that was weird. He never really got any culmination with that. Yeah, any closure.
But yeah. I don't know. Like, the way they did the reveal with Sharon was a little mustache twirly. Like, oh, yes, I am the person behind the scenes.
But she never actually said she was the power broker either. She just kind of was like, everybody was saying it, and she was just like, whatever. It was like, I don't know, it didn't play out well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious because Carly referred to her as that, and Carly knew the power broker from all those other things. Like, I think it's pretty much... I don't think they're trying to do it as a way of saying, like, somebody else is the power broker. She was just playing along. But, I guess that could be a possibility down the line. But, yeah, they definitely rushed her heel turn if that's what happens. If it ends up being a Skrull thing, then I won't have a problem with any of this.
That would make more sense. With the Skrull thing, do you think they avoided doing... Like, I could see that exact same scene in the post-credit scene with her walking away from the building. What'd you say?
She didn't want to go to the hospital at the end.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, she also wasn't pardoned, so maybe she was afraid if she went to the hospital, she would be arrested.
Yeah, but I love how Bucky called that. He's just like, she's not going to listen to you. And she's like, yeah, it's not the worst thing that's happened to me this week. And he's like, yep, see, she's not going to go. Like, he just knew immediately she wasn't going to want to go to the hospital. But yeah, I really do think that this could turn out to be one of the first people that we're seeing who's been replaced.
I can see that for sure. But I mean, if you look at everything she's done, like, even from the first movie we see her in, like, she lied to Cap from the very beginning. Like, she was keeping tabs on him from the very beginning. I mean, and that plays into, like I said, the reference to the comics that she was a sleeper agent all along. And she was all this time trying to get close to Steve or get close to Captain America. And once Captain America's off the grid, the Captain America we know, then her mission changed.
Yeah.
So it could be that she was just a sleeper agent all along, and maybe we're going to get that story later. I don't know. I just don't think it played out well across 5 episodes.
Yeah, it was just weird. The Skrull thing would make more sense, especially with is that a show? Is Secret Wars or Secret Invasion, is that a show or is that a movie? I don't remember.
It'll be a show.
A show, okay.
Sam Jackson's supposed to be leading it, but
right.
I don't know if they've announced anyone else to be in it so far. Have you guys heard anything about it?
Maybe
they haven't.
I don't think so. I see the casting stuff all the time, but they have so many shows coming out that I forget which is for which. But yeah, I don't think so. I think it's just him as of right now. They could, but it's not gonna be for a while. I don't think that's coming out for another year or two, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing I was confused with is that she was dipping in so many different pots. So it's and even in this episode, she hired Batroc and I guess her plan was to spy on Carly, but then she showed up there anyway to help. So it was she played every side, and it was okay, but what is your motive to playing every side like this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, whoever comes out on top, she gets to be see, I was there helping you.
Yeah, I guess, but I guess because they just didn't explain it well. And I mean, even when you go back to when we first see Sharon, an episode where she led them to the guy that was making a serum, if you're the power broker, why did you let Zemo kill him? That doesn't really make sense. Or, maybe she called the guys that came to stop them from getting in there, and she had to beat them up to keep her cover. But, I mean, you called them there, so you already knew you were coming. So all of it was just very confusing.
Yeah. I mean, if they had done more to establish that she was doing that intentionally to create trust with Falcon or something, then I could have understand. But they really did leave a lot out, and I think that maybe that's another storyline that got a little trimmed down because of the pandemic. We really don't know how the show was affected, but we know it was. So I do feel like that's one of the things where they're well, we only have her for so long to shoot these last 2 episodes, so let's just do these scenes and maybe not worry about these other ones. Who knows?
Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, when she came out and she got in the car and she was saying, we have a big problem, we assumed that she was talking about Sam and Bucky figuring it out. Maybe she was talking about the fact that the scientist got killed, and that's what she was saying is the big problem?
Maybe.
Yeah, true. Whose henchmen were those who showed up? Because
exactly. She must have called them. That's the only thing I can think of. She must have called them to cover her tracks.
Yeah.
But she ended up killing all of them, so she killed all her own henchmen. And I mean, she clearly killed Selby.
Yeah.
To cover her tracks.
Yeah, we talked about that. We had no idea who killed Selby. It's obvious it was her now.
Yeah. Anybody that was going to out her, she killed them.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, at least the butler took care of the other super soldiers for her.
I thought that was a fantastic scene, and I'm telling you, Zemo was one of the best characters throughout the show. Him smugly smiling when he's yep, took care of those super soldiers, just laid back in his bed.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, that was great. I wanted to ask you guys about that too, but one last thing. So obviously she shot Carly, but how did Sam not see that? Didn't he see her shoot Carly or no?
Well, it looked like self-defense.
Carly didn't get shot.
No, Carly did get shot, right?
Yeah,
No. I thought it was just Batroc and her that got shot, and then Carly was fine and immediately started fighting Falcon.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, after
he's talking about when Carly gets killed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm assuming he saw that as self-defense because it looked like she just saved him because Carly looked like she was going to shoot Sam, and so that's when Sharon shot her.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, that would make more sense, because I was wondering, like, why afterwards, because, like, you know, he treated her not like a hero, but, like, you know, she shouldn't have died. Like, he didn't want her to die. So I'm thinking, like, why wouldn't he have said anything to Sharon about it? So I guess that makes more sense. Do you guys think they maybe didn't do the scroll reveal? Maybe if that's where they're going with this, which I hope they kind of are, just because it would make everything make a lot more sense. Do you think they did that, or they didn't do that on this episode because we literally just got that at the end of WandaVision and at the end of Far From Home a year or two ago? Like, do you think too many scroll reveals in a row would have been too much for this show?
Yeah, I think so.
They gotta leave some of the scroll reveals for the Secret Invasion show too. So, yeah, I think if it's gonna happen, we'll see it there.
Yeah.
And I think this is an espionage show at heart, so I think they want to keep it looking like maybe she's a double agent, maybe she's a sleeper agent. I think they're trying to keep it grounded as possible for the show, and they didn't want to add aliens to it. That's my guess.
No, that makes sense. I don't want people to get scroll fatigue, like with like, oh, another fucking scroll reveal. Like, I'm glad they didn't do that, but I hope that's where they ultimately go with it, because that would make a lot more sense. You guys mentioned the Zemo thing and how they killed the rest of the flag smashers with the van blowing up, blah blah blah. Do you guys think he's working with Val? Is he going to be involved in that storyline at some point?
So there's a flag smasher alive, right? There
Yes.
was the one that fell in the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was confused by that because I was like, okay, so is Sharon calling Val at the end, or is she calling somebody that's connected to Val? Clearly, Val is in some way connected to Zemo, because when she saw that the Flag Smashers were killed, she was like, our friend Zemo got what he wanted. And so I'm like, okay, so clearly she did something to get him in a raft and not in that other jail he was in before.
Mm-hmm.
And the raft is ran by Thunderbolt Ross. So I'm like, are they all connected to Thunderbolt?
Well, that is where the Dora Milaje said they were going to take him.
Right.
It seems like they're just sort of using that as like the catch-all for supervillain prisons, but was that Flag Smasher reveal like when they were like, oh, there's one in the Hudson, whatever, can you go grab him? Was that before or after the truck blew up? Because if it was after, or if it was before, that guy could have been in the truck with them.
It was after, I thought.
Okay.
Because I thought it was after. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. They were a little weird with the timeline, but I know we kind of talked about it earlier, but the scene when Walker and Bucky like trick them and basically use their app against them to catch them, I actually did chuckle a little bit when Walker gives that quote where he's like, mercy yields more fruit than vengeance or violence or whatever he said, and then Bucky's like, really? Abraham Lincoln? He's like, great man, great quote, and he's like, not when you say it. Like, that did make me laugh, even though it wasn't really like an earned back and forth, like, oh, I don't like you, but I kind of like you thing. Like, it still was pretty funny. Like, Wyatt Russell has done a good job in this show.
Yeah, I thought that was a hilarious line, and I think, man, there's so many intentional things they did with Walker in this episode, and that's why I don't want to bash on it too much, even though I didn't like some of his humor. I mean, like, even him saying, I'm back, if I remember correctly, that's directly from a Captain America cover where he reappears. His calling Contessa Val is clearly like a nod to his liaison he used to work with, Val Cooper. So all of this stuff is intentional. I mean, even him quoting Lincoln, like he's like a staunch Republican in the comics. So all of that stuff makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and Val, like in the one episode when she's like, you can call me Val for short, but don't. Just do it in your head. Like, I like how that came back, and he's just like, okay, Val. She's like, don't call me Val. He's like, copy.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
did you notice how when he did that, he had a little tick?
Yeah, I mean, he had ticks a lot of times throughout this episode.
Throughout the whole show, I've actually kind of been thinking about this. Like, in each episode at different times, they've kind of shown that a little bit. Like, just this little thing where he kind of moves his head to the left a little bit. I don't know. It was a very subtle detail that was much more noticeable in this episode.
Yeah. I mean, I think his whole story arc is there's two things that are happening in America outside of like the Flag Smasher stuff. There's the institutional racism that affected Isiah Bradley, and then there's the overall way that the country treats veterans when they come back, and that's John Walker's story. So I think having Sam understand both of those things and not completely turn John Walker in because he is a veteran and he did, serve the country. I think that's part of the story of this episode, and that's why he kind of gets his quote unquote happy ending, because he's not necessarily a bad guy. He just did something really terrible.
Yeah. He wants to be a hero. He wants to be the good guy. He has anger issues, and he doesn't necessarily know how to always go about it.
Yeah.
But
he should be Captain America. That's the whole gist of it.
I kind of wonder, though, if at some point they'll give him like his version of the Shield again, or if he'll just be, a guy with a gun going forward.
Yeah, he probably will build another Shield, if it's my guess, or he'll be given another Shield.
I mean, Jesus, man, you don't get those Medal of Honors if you lose them. They're not going to replace them for you. I hope he got his original one off the ground.
He didn't seem that enthused about his Medals of Honor anyway, so I don't know.
True. Man, when they're all down in that little ravine and Sam shows up, he hit like 4 people with that shield in one shot. Like, did we ever see Steve do anything even close to that with the shield?
In Winter Soldier, when he first shows up and he starts throwing a shield around in stealth and they don't see him, like, that's the coolest thing we've seen him do with the shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, yeah.
All the stuff they had him doing with the combination of the wings and the shield, like, they did such a great job making that look cool.
Oh, that was awesome, man.
He did so many things in this episode that I was like, he's Cap. I mean, when he saved the people in the truck, mm-hmm. and he used his thrusters to push it back up, all of that stuff was great. Him coming in and fighting Batroc and realizing that people were in danger and him immediately stopping the fight. Like, I agreed, we didn't get a definitive, he didn't beat anybody definitively in this episode. But I think him understanding, like, I'm not here to fight. Like, I'm carrying a shield that is a defensive weapon. So, there are people need to be saved. I have to go. And I thought all of that stuff was great. Him not attacking Carly. And, I mean, that's clearly a callback to the Bucky and Steve fight where Steve wouldn't fight back. Mm-hmm. All of that stuff was great. I mean, I noticed in this episode, when he was trying to help Carly, I never put this together, but in Endgame, when Steve was counseling people, he was doing that because of Sam. He got that from Sam.
Oh, yeah, I didn't really put that together, but you're right.
Oh, yeah, I completely forgot about that, because he mentioned that to him when he first met him in Winter Soldier, right?
Yeah, and I think that just goes back to why Steve picked him, because Steve, it just showed how much Sam changed Steve and how much their friendship meant to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it makes sense. And again, I think so far going forward, he's going to be the perfect fit for that role. There was one thing I wanted to mention, you guys, this is going back a while that I forgot to bring up. When you talked about the phone call at the end of the episode with Sharon, when she was on the phone, and you guys mentioned the possibility of her maybe being on the phone with Val. I had seen one thing, this was right before we started getting going here, from comicbook.com. I don't think this is a rumor. I think this was just pure speculation. What if she was on the phone with Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2? Is that something you guys would be interested in? I don't know how that would connect, but do you think that is a possibility? / do you think it's something that you would want to see?
I would definitely be interested in that, because the idea of Hammer getting his hands on Stark tech or like CIA tech, I would love it. If he's like the mastermind behind everything going on in Armor War, I think that would be awesome.
And any reason just to bring back the character, I think would be great.
Yes.
What about you, Chris?
I mean, I doubt that's who she was talking to, but I would love Sam Rockwell to come back. I think she was just talking to one of her underlings.
No, she definitely was. I don't want to. I'm setting the bar too high here. This is just something that I saw on this website. I'm like, that would be fucking sick. I mean, it's not going to happen, but just fantasy.
I mean, at this point, Sam Rockwell's won an Oscar now. Like, the Marvel should go get him back.
Yeah,
I would love to know the story,
he's coming back.
Like,
he has to.
When he played Justin Hammer, he was a character actor. A lot of people barely knew his name. They were just like, oh, he's that guy from that thing. I liked him in that. Now people know who Sam Rockwell is, so they could do a lot more with that character now, especially if he spent a lot of years in prison and he's all angry.
Yeah. I think the best bit from Iron Man 2 is when he's getting taken away to jail and he gets serious. I thought that was like some of his best acting in that movie.
Oh yeah, I mean he's just such a charismatic actor in general. Like, he can play super menacing and he can play funny, and that's like the fine line that a lot of these good Marvel villains tread. Like, Zemo and Loki both can be funny and can be menacing. Like, Sam Rockwell can also do that, and they really should try and get him back.
Yeah. As the last time we've seen him was in that short with Trevor Slattery in jail.
Was he even in that?
Yeah, he was one of the guys in jail.
Yeah, the All Hail the King show. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they sort of imply. Didn't they imply that it was the real Mandarin who came to visit him, right?
Yeah, it's implied that the real Mandarin killed Slattery or kidnapped him or whatever happened at the end of All Hail.
That'd be so funny if Shang-Chi or Shang-Chi, however you pronounce it, if they had a call back to that, like, just, when I went and killed that imposter from England.
I would honestly, I'd be shocked if they didn't reference the fact that there used to be, a fake Mandarin. I'm sure they will explain that, or at least reference it or something. I feel like they kind of have to, because that's what people think of as the Mandarin in terms of like casual viewers and shit. So I feel like they have to.
It seems like they're referring to him less as the Mandarin and more as just Wen Wu in most of the promotional materials that I've been seeing.
Okay.
And it also looks like they're changing the 10 rings to not be rings, but to be like armor bracelet things that he has around his wrist.
Yeah.
So, personally, I don't care. They can change little things like that if they want to. Giving him 10 different rings would have been a little weird and gaudy. But
yeah. I mean, it seems like from the trailer that the rings have different powers, because at that one point where the water is moving around, is he controlling the water in that scene?
It seems like it, and then there's another shot that I saw where like some kind of purple energy shoots out of him.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got some different abilities apparently. I don't know if they'll do the same thing in the comics where it's like each one has its own individual power, but it would be cool if they did.
I wanted to ask you guys about that too. What were your initial thoughts on the trailer? Phil, I'll start with you.
I was surprised that they're moving forward with Mandarin being Shang-Chi's dad. I was wondering how they were going to do that. I'm glad we're not getting the Fu Manchu character, and we're staying away from some of the Yellow Peril stuff. I was really curious to see how they were going to handle that. But I thought the trailer itself looked really good. I'm really excited about it. It looks like a legitimate kung fu movie, which is the best thing I could say about it.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big kung fu movie fan. I think I have like 150 kung fu movies on DVD. So I'm always happy whenever something like this comes out. I liked the trailer for what it delivered. It obviously is holding back quite a bit of information because this is like the first trailer. We never get very much, but it looks interesting. I like Awkwafina, so I'm glad to see her popping up in this. I think she'll probably be, the comic relief, which every one of these movies needs, because Shang-Chi's not going to be he's not going to be Iron Man quipping all the time, you know.
Yeah.
He's going to be a little more serious because his story's a little more serious. So having her there will definitely lighten things up. But this is a really good cast, and it looks like they got some good fight choreographers for it. So I'm excited for it. It looks like it'll bring us to a different area of the MCU that hasn't been explored yet. And there was also rumors that like there's a scene in the trailer that somebody was like, oh, I think this might be taking place in Madripoor.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
So hope maybe they'll try and turn that into like a common location that we see moving forward, because there's a lot of Marvel specific locations that they really haven't used. So it would be cool if they started using them more often.
Well, if I understand right, they couldn't use Madripoor because of its connection to the X-Men, right? So I think they just got the rights to use it again.
Yeah, that's probably true. And I'm assuming the same thing for Latveria with Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll probably start to see some of these things come up shortly, but I enjoyed the trailer.
Speaking of Latveria, I noticed... I can't remember which episode that was, but the episode where they were walking down the street and Zemo was talking about how Sokovia had gotten pillaged by its neighbors. And what is one of its neighbors? Latveria.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the MCU moving forward. It seems like they're getting more accurate to the comics. Like we're starting to see more. They're getting less and less into the real world and more into Marvel's madness. Like we saw that start with Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, and it's just continuing. So the crazier they get with it, the happier I'll be.
Yeah. I'm glad they're building more of like the international stuff with Marvel, and everything doesn't take place in America or in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got to see like some like real world like places like Japan and all these other places, but I'm glad they're building like Latveria and all these other fictional countries.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's cool we're getting spoiled with so much shit recently. Between this trailer, they dropped that new... I mean, it really didn't feature anything new, but that updated trailer for Black Widow coming out in a couple months. Obviously, we got the teaser for the new Spider-Man movie in December. They have said absolutely nothing about Eternals, right? Is that still like... I have heard absolutely nothing about that at all.
I saw a leak of what the Celestials are going to look like, but that's about it.
Yeah, nothing official, though, right?
No.
Yeah. I don't know. That's just weird.
I think Kumail Nanjiani said something recently, but it didn't have to do with like a renewed date. But I think right now maybe they're just like, let's just push the stuff we have and we'll get to Eternals when we get to it.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Another thing I forgot to bring up when we were talking about the Val character, I don't know if I had seen this before or after we spoke last week, but someone had said that she was going to be involved, or at least it was rumored that she was going to be involved in the Black Widow movie. And obviously this was supposed to come out after that. So do you guys think we'll see her again in that movie, or was this always meant to be the debut of her character in the MCU?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up in Black Widow. There's going to be ties to everything that's going on in Black Widow for sure. We just don't know what yet.
Do you think Thunderbolt's a connection too? Because the funny thing is that, or not funny, but just the weird thing is that he was shown in the credits of the initial episode of this show, as was Isiah Bradley, and I think everything they referenced in the credits was eventually shown except for Thunderbolt Ross, which was weird. Do you guys think he might have been a part of the scrap stuff for this show, or I feel like he was destined to show up and we just never got him?
Probably.
Especially since they mentioned the Rat a bunch of times too.
Yeah, it feels like something got cut out there because he's one of those actors that they would have only needed for a couple of days. So if the pandemic came in, they were probably like, well, it's just easier not to risk anything and write him out. But Ross did seem like a character that would naturally show up, and I'm almost a little surprised we didn't get Rhodey appearing in any way, like past his initial appearance in the first episode.
Yeah, in the first scene, wasn't that the first scene of the first episode?
pretty
Yeah.
close.
Yeah, they just kind of got out of the way.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't get any like Rhodey nodding thing here in the last episode, and then that was just it. That would have felt kind of weird. I didn't understand all of these people online saying, "Is it that big of a deal that Sam's Captain America because Rhodey's Iron Patriot?" It's like, yeah, but those are not the same characters, and they don't have the same intent. So why are people being obtuse, basically?
Yeah, it is two different things. Like, and nobody's trying to take anything away from the character of Rhodey, but he wasn't Captain America. Like, you can't say, like, oh, well, look at this. It's like, just because he had a red, white, and blue paint scheme for one movie doesn't mean he was a Captain America stand-in. Like, I don't know why anybody made that call.
Yeah,
it was strange.
One last thing for you guys before we wrap it up here. We kind of referenced it earlier, but we didn't really go in depth with it. But the new Captain America movie that was announced right after the new episode aired yesterday, Captain America 4, obviously with Sam as the new Captain America. I don't know when it would be due out or what it's even going to be about, but we do know it's happening. Chris, what were your thoughts on the announcement and that we're getting the fourth movie in the franchise?
Well, I'm glad they made the announcement when they did, because as soon as the episode was over, I was like, oh, they got to do a season 2 or something. There's so many threads that they left dangling. But once they revealed that there was going to be a movie, I was at least satisfied that, like, okay, we'll still get to see Sam. And actually, I almost think that that's more... I feel like that's actually the better decision. Like, they can do a season 2 eventually if they want to, but
yeah,
giving Anthony Mackie his own Captain America movie... It almost feels like that's really what's going to solidify him as Cap. Like, making him Cap in this episode and having him acknowledged as such was great. But for some reason, the Disney Plus shows are never going to be viewed the same way as the movies.
Right.
Like, people are always going to look at them and classify them slightly differently. So giving Anthony Mackie a movie to headline as Captain America, I feel like that was something important that they needed to do, and I'm really glad that they did it.
Yeah, I completely agree. What about you, Phil, about the movie?
I'm super excited. I was hoping he was going to get a movie, and I agree. I think it's just the right move in terms of if you're going to go full blown and make him Captain America, then make him the lead of his own trilogy. If you're going to do that, give him his own leading role in a movie. Because I think that matters. I mean, and of course it absolutely matters because we don't have Chadwick anymore, and giving another black man a leading role it's the next step. And I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with Black Panther, but it should definitely be the move to go, no, we're not just going to do one movie where we have black leads. We're going to do more than one movie, and doing it with Captain America is a huge step.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we're getting a movie because the shows are great, but I think there's also going to be that portion of fans that only watch the movies and don't follow the shows. So it's cool that he's getting his own film at some point. Again, I don't know when it's going to be out, but I guess we'll find out in due time. One last thing, I forgot to mention this. We'll end it on this, but I'm very glad we didn't get a Steve Rogers appearance on the show. I did fear it at several points after they brought him up so much that they were going to make him, that he was going to make a return, or they would show him, or especially when the truck fell and John Walker couldn't catch it. For some reason, I thought it might have been Steve. I don't know. I mean, obviously he's an old man now, but obviously it was Falcon. But I thought for a split second we might see Steve. It would have been
so random.
I don't know. I thought that would have been it, but I'm like, thank God that wasn't the case.
Just shows up. Hey guys, decided to help for a second.
Hey, he left the moon. He left the moon for a quick second just to help out, but. Especially with that shit, I'm like, they keep mentioning this shit. I mean, I was very glad we didn't see him at all, and it ended up being exactly what we hoped it would be, and them just passing the torch/shield to Sam as the new Captain America. We already got that moment at the fucking end of Endgame. We didn't need it again. So, were you guys equally as happy about that / surprised that we didn't see him?
Yeah, I've always thought if they're gonna bring him back, it wasn't going to be on a Disney Plus show. It was going to be a big deal. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if the thing he was in talks to do was Cap 4, and he shows up in that in some way. But I mean, I think saving him for a big thing is the way to go. I mean, I think, of course, the other thing with Cap 4 and then moving forward, if we get Carl Lumbly on the big screen as Isiah Bradley, that's a win in my opinion.
Oh,
and
100%.
you know, if we get Isiah in some kind of scene with Steve in the movie, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. Again, that was another scene where when he brought Isiah to see his statue, I thought for a second that obviously the statue is the best thing they could have done. I thought for a second he was bringing him to see Steve at like the fucking like in like a hidden room at like the museum. And again, I'm very glad that.
Oh man, if he came in there to see the statue and Steve walked from behind it, that would have killed me.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah,
Are you happy / glad he wasn't on the show?
The only way that it really would have been acceptable is like literally what you guys just described, is if it was Steve meeting Isiah and just kind of being like, hey, thanks. But yeah, it would have felt shoehorned in. And also, I just feel like it was Sam and Bucky's show, but it really was Sam's show. Like, he's the one who had the bigger arc in the end. So I'm not going to say that Steve showing up would have cheapened that, but I think it strengthens it to allow it to be just, this is Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan's show. We don't need all these other big Marvel names coming in for cameos to try and give them the rub. Like, they are the heroes, and let's just leave it at that. So I'm glad they went the way they did. But yeah, one thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention earlier was my favorite line in the episode, and it had to do with the delivery. After, when Sam is fighting the helicopter and he gets like knocked down into the water, and then he comes back up and he just yells, you just earned every bit of this ass whooping. Like,
Yeah.
That made me laugh so hard. I don't know why. Just Anthony Mackie's delivery on that line was so great.
Yeah.
And then the way he took him out by just like propelling the shield at the helicopter and then flying right through it to pull the guy out so that girl could take over, it was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, if we don't get Sam leading an Avengers team at some point, like, I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Or something. Like, he could literally, at this point, they could almost build a team of characters just around the Captain America brand. Like, you could have Sam as Cap, you could have Bucky there, you could have U.S. Agent show up, you can have Torres be the new Falcon, you could have Eli at the beginning of his superhero career. Like, that's 5 people right there, man. Make that team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways they can go with it. In the new movie, too, aside from what you just mentioned, are we going to get a subplot with Bucky and Sarah? I mean, what's going on with that relationship?
I really enjoyed the final scene of, we came from the episode before this, him saying he didn't have a family, and Sam giving him a family. I thought that was amazing. And even just stuff like them standing and looking off in the distance, I could tell like that was a nod to they're thinking about Steve, but they didn't say it.
Yeah. And
then like they immediately cut to the title changing. I thought that was all really well done.
Yeah. I thought that was an awesome ending.
The family party at the end was a heartwarming way to end it. And I love how Bucky comes in and the nephews are all trying to like wrestle with him and stuff. And
they're on his arm.
And then they show him just talking to the sister nonchalantly while 3 kids are hanging off of his vibranium arm.
Yeah, that was great. It reminds me of like when they're trying to pull like the I forgot what it's for, the MacArthur or whatever it is, when you pull like the sword out of the ground. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, but that was a good scene. I love how all those people were like posing for pictures with Sam and like treating him. He's the big deal in town.
The one woman just dives on him.
Right. Yeah, so that was I liked how they ended it with like, these two are clearly more than like just friends now. Like these guys have gone through enough to be almost brothers with each other at this point. Like, they still have that Riggs and Murtaugh, they'll argue occasionally but I like that they didn't keep up with that tension for too long. Like, after a few episodes, Sam and Bucky were just, with each other, and that was it.
Man, speaking of Riggs and Murtaugh, if Shane Black is not in the talks to direct this movie, what are we doing?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Shane Black is definitely one of those directors who I think could do quite a bit with this franchise.
Yeah, it depends when it comes out. I'm not sure. It's probably not anytime soon, right? The rumor or the report was that it was just being made, right? It's not anytime soon, I guess.
Well, I guess the initial announcement said the showrunner from this and one of the staff writers are writing the script. I don't know if they announced who's directing, though. Is it? Okay. Is it one of those guys too?
No, they just said that the script is currently being written, from what I understand.
Okay.
You know what's crazy? Erin Kellyman, the girl who played Carly, I don't know if either of you guys realize this. She was also in a Star Wars movie.
Yes, she was in Solo.
Yeah, she was Enfys Nest, who had a very similar arc to Carly. She's like a freedom fighter.
Oh, yeah, that's why she looked familiar. That makes
but,
sense.
like, this girl is 22, and she's already been in two of the biggest film franchises in history. Like, talk about getting your career off on the right foot.
Yeah,
I thought she was great in this. I don't think she got like the best resolution to her story, but I thought she was really good throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I literally just thought of this, but she did say several times on this episode, it doesn't matter if we live or die because her cause will live on. And then she ended up dying, obviously, and the rest of them did too, but for a different reason or by different means. But no, I'm glad that Sam had mentioned her. Like, I also loved during that whole scene when he was talking, not to the camera, but like they picked up on the audio clearly for some reason. Like the cameras were far away from him, but we heard every single word he was saying perfectly. But he had mentioned like enough with the labels, like stop calling them terrorists and refugees and all this other shit. A lot of takeaways there, so I thought that was fantastic too. I thought this was a really good finale, far from perfect, but I thought this was a great show overall, and they accomplished a lot of stuff, and they left me looking forward to more, whether it be a second season before the movie comes out or whenever that movie does come out in a couple of years. But yeah, it's been awesome breaking this down with you guys. This has been a lot of fun, and now we have to wait another 2 months until Loki comes out. So with WandaVision, when that ended, we had 2 weeks until this show. Now we got 2 months until Loki, so it's a good time as ever to catch up on all the other movies and shit. But yeah, this has been awesome. Phil, any parting words before we run off into the sunset here?
Man, I enjoy that the Disney Plus stuff has not just been side stuff. They have made two side characters into great main characters in Wanda and Sam. Like, Sam, to me, feels like a fully formed guy that can lead a franchise now.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, same. I'm very happy with what they've done so far with these two shows, and it makes me very hopeful that the future shows like Loki and Ironheart and Moon Knight and She-Hulk and all these other millions of things they have planned will actually live up to their potential. I mean, we can't expect everything to be amazing, but so far they've been killing it. So yeah. I'm very happy with how this show ended up. Even if it did have a little bit of inconsistency in that last episode, I'm chalking a lot of that up to, I think the back half of this show really got affected by the pandemic, and we just don't know exactly how.
Yeah.
But yeah, beyond that, I'm very happy with how everything turned out in this. And that title card changing at the end to say Captain America and the Winter Soldier, like, that was the perfect way to end it.
Yeah. I fucking love that. So yeah, this was really good. They're 2 for 2 with the Disney shows, so the Disney Plus shows. I'm looking forward to Loki in a couple months. Hopefully it comes up quickly. Then we got Black Widow after that, and Shang-Chi in September. So there's a lot to look forward to if you're a Marvel fan right now. Nothing for the month of May, unfortunately, but again, like I said, good as a time as ever to kind of catch up on the movies and shit on Disney Plus. I saw they were putting Spider-Man on Disney Plus. I don't know if that's official or not, but I heard they were bringing that to Disney Plus soon too.
That is official.
Awesome.
Sony did a deal to take the exclusivity off of Netflix, so we'll probably see Spider-Verse show up there. we'll probably see other Sony properties show up there and Hulu, but I don't know exactly when it kicks in.
Yeah. Well, even if it's a couple of months, that's fucking awesome. I like having all the movies in the same place, and hopefully at some point we get Hulk on there, but who gives a fuck about Hulk, so it doesn't really matter. But as long as we have the other movies, that's cool. But this has been great, guys. Had a lot of fun breaking in WandaVision with you, and now Falcon, Winter Soldier, and I look forward to breaking in Loki, too, hopefully come a couple of months from now, come June. But Phil, people can follow you on the Twitter machine at PhilDL616, and Chris, you're on the Twitter machine at BR_Doctor. Chris, Phil, this has been awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Yep.